Regulations on scaffolding outline specific requirements for scaffolding use and safety. First, let's look at the capacity guideline. OSHA requires that all scaffolding components be capable of supporting their weight and 4 times the maximum intended load. To accomplish this, it's recommended that solid sawn wood, fabricated planks, and fabricated platforms be used in the installation. Suspension ropes used in adjustable suspension scaffolds must support 6 times the maximum intended load. To prevent accidental overloading of scaffolding, OSHA requires that the stall load of a scaffold hoist not exceed 3 times its rated load. To ensure the correct design and load amount, all scaffolds must be constructed and loaded as designed by a qualified person. The design and construction of the scaffold platform are important for safe use. All platforms need to be fully planked except for walkways and those platforms that are used by employees erecting or dismantling the scaffold. In these cases, the platform should be at least 2 planks wide. All other platforms must be at least 18 inches wide. If a platform needs to be less than 18 inches, guardrails or fall arrest systems should be used. Once assembled, the distance between the front edge of the scaffold and the structure being worked on should be no more than 14 inches. Again, if the distance is more than 14 inches, guardrails have to be used. Platforms longer than 10 feet can't extend over the support system by more than 18 inches unless the cantilevered part can hold workers without tipping, or guardrails are used. If more than one platform is used to create a longer work surface, the touching ends should rest on separate support surfaces and not on each other. Wood platforms mustn't be covered with opaque finishes except for platform edges that are marked for identification purposes. That said, platforms can be coated with fire retardant or slip resistant finishes as long as the coating doesn't obscure the top or bottom wood surfaces. Why? Well, that's to ensure that any damage, like cracks, can be easily seen. There are 2 main types of scaffolding: supported and suspended. Supported scaffolds are platforms supported by legs, uprights, frames, or other similar rigid supports. The structural supports are braced to prevent swaying using base plates, mud sills, or another firm foundation. These footings need to be level, sound, and capable of supporting a fully loaded scaffold without displacement. Front-end loaders and other construction equipment should never be used to support a scaffold. Supported scaffolds with a height-to-width ratio greater than 4:1 must be restrained using tying, bracing, or other means to prevent tipping. This bracing should be repeated every 20 feet or less for platforms less than 3 feet wide, and every 26 feet for those that are over 3 feet wide. The supports also need to be spaced no more than 30 feet apart across the scaffold. A suspended scaffold is where one or more platforms are suspended by ropes from above. If outrigger beams are used on a suspension scaffold, they've got to be made of metal and they have to be properly restrained to prevent movement. Suspension scaffolds must always be tied to prevent swaying, and guardrails or personal fall arrest system should be used anytime a worker is more than 10 feet off the ground. Ropes used in suspension scaffolds must be inspected by a competent person before every use and after any event that might have affected the integrity of the rope. Counterweights are used to balance suspension scaffolds. Only items that are specifically designed as counterweights are allowed to be used, and flowable materials, such as sand or water, may never be used as counterweight. Construction materials, like tools or scraps of wood, also are not allowed to be used as counterweights, and all of these counterweights must be marked with their weights. Counterweights should be mechanically secured to outrigger beams. Outrigger beams are the parts of the suspension scaffold that provide support, and they should be placed perpendicular to the section they're supporting. When you're securing a suspension scaffold to a structure, tiebacks have to be secured to a structurally sound part. Standpipes, vents, and electrical conduits are not structurally sound and should not be used for tiebacks. Suspension ropes must be long enough to allow the scaffold to be lowered to the level below without passing through the hoist. Wire suspension ropes can only be joined together using eye-splice thimbles with shackles or cover plates and bolts, and repaired wire ropes can never be used. Alright, so regardless of the type of scaffold that you're using, workers must be properly trained on the hazards and precautions that are specific to that type of scaffolding. Employers must provide an access point when scaffolding is more than 2 feet from the previous point of access. Direct access is allowed if the scaffold is less than 14 inches wide and no more than 24 inches vertically from other surfaces. Ladders, stair towers, ramps, and prefabricated frames are acceptable access forms. Cross braces, however, aren't permitted to be used for access. Portable ladders have to be positioned so that they don't tip the scaffold, and they need to be designed for use with the specific scaffold. Scaffolding stairways are required to have handrails with at least a 3-inch clearance, and they have to be at least 18 inches wide. Ramps that are used to access scaffolding can't be steeper than a 20-degree slope. Access for those workers erecting and dismantling scaffolds should be left up to the competent person on site, based on site conditions and the type of scaffold. OSHA provides guidance on the actual use of scaffolding as well. Scaffolds must never be overloaded to prevent collapse. All platforms must also be free of clutter and debris during use. All scaffolds need to be inspected by a competent person on site before each use or any time their integrity is in question. Serious business here, folks. Any damaged scaffolding needs to be repaired or replaced immediately. If this can't be done, it should be removed from service until it's repaired or replaced. Scaffolding should also never be moved while workers are on it, except for mobile scaffolding designed to do so. In the case of bad weather, employees shouldn't be expected to work on platforms covered with ice, snow, or anything else that can make them slippery. Loads being hoisted onto the scaffolding must be stabilized to prevent swinging that could hit and damage the scaffold. So even when scaffolding is designed and constructed properly, hazards still exist and care must be taken.